When people hear the word manipulation, they imagine control, someone forcing another person to act against their will. But that isn't how real manipulation works. True manipulation doesn't remove your choices. It quietly reshapes them. You still feel autonomous. You still believe the decisions are yours. That is the point. The goal is not obedience. The goal is influence without awareness. If pressure is visible, it can be resisted. If control is obvious, it can be rejected. But if influence feels natural, it goes unquestioned. The first thing skilled manipulators do is not act. They observe. They watch how you respond to approval, to silence, to disagreement. They note what energizes you and what unsettles you. This process is called emotional calibration. Before they ever ask for anything, they learn how you bend, not dramatically, subtly. A change in tone, a hesitation before you speak, a need to explain yourself. Once your emotional patterns are mapped, influence becomes predictable. They don't push you, they guide you. Validation feels harmless, encouraging even. But when validation is given strategically, it becomes a tool. Manipulators don't validate often. They validate selectively. Approval arrives just when uncertainty appears. Over time, the mind begins to associate their presence with emotional relief. You start to seek their reactions, their approval, their reassurance. And without ever asking directly, they've positioned themselves as an emotional reference point. Validation becomes currency. Facts matter far less than stories, because humans don't live by evidence alone. They live by meaning. Manipulators understand this. They don't argue details. They frame narratives. They define what events mean before you have time to interpret them yourself. Once the narrative is established, contradictory information feels uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it threatens coherence. At that point, people don't defend the manipulator. They defend the story. Silence is often misunderstood. It's seen as passive, neutral, empty. In reality, silence can be one of the most active tools of influence. When conversation stops unexpectedly, the human brain rushes to fill the gap. You speak more. You clarify. You reveal. The manipulator remains still, not disengaged, in control. Silence forces disclosure, and disclosure creates leverage. This isn't rare, and it isn't limited to villains. It happens in workplaces, in friendships, in relationships. It happens whenever one person subtly shapes how another thinks, feels, or behaves without explicit force. If you've ever left a conversation feeling drained, uncertain, or strangely off balance, that wasn't coincidence. The weakness of manipulation is awareness. It relies entirely on remaining unseen. Once patterns are noticed, their power collapses. Delay responses. Observe emotional shifts. Track behavior, not words. Manipulation does not survive attention. The most dangerous manipulator in your life may not be the one you fear. It may be the one you trust. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.